You are lying next to her in the darkness. A heavy, almost physical silence fills the space between you, an abyss of inches that feel like miles. The air is thin, heavy with unspoken words and a tension you can feel on your skin. Her body is there, a familiar presence in the bed you share. But the woman you knew, the woman whose laughter was the soundtrack of your life, is gone. In her place rests a stranger. She is cold, distant, a continent of ice floating beside you. Sex, which was once an act of union and passion, has become a chore, a grim obligation she would rather die than perform. It could be a corpse next to you, for all the passion that exists between you. A marble statue, beautiful but lifeless, indifferent to the warmth of your presence. And this coldness burns you more than any fire. Your mind, tireless, screams in an echo of confusion and pain. What happened? How did we get to this point? Where did the woman who desired you, who looked at you as if you were the center of her universe, go? Why did she transform into this being, cloistered within herself, who recoils at your touch as if it were acid? Every attempt at affection is met with a subtle stiffening, an almost imperceptible turning away, but one that your heart registers as a hammer blow. You have become a detective in your own home, a spy in your own relationship. You have investigated everything, gone over every possibility with desperate logic. There is no other man. You checked. Her phone is clean. A desolate landscape of trivial conversations and social media. Her behavior patterns are the same, predictable and devoid of any romantic secret. She is not cheating. The truth is, somehow, much worse. The problem is not the presence of another man. The problem is the absence of desire for you. She just doesn't want you anymore. And herein lies the paradox that drives you mad, the contradiction that keeps you from sleeping at night. She doesn't want a divorce either. She seems strangely content, or perhaps resigned, to living in this sexless purgatory, this deadly calm. You have become roommates who share a mortgage and the monthly bills, co-parents who logistically coordinate their children's lives with the efficiency of two project managers. But lovers? That word sounds like a foreign language, an artifact from a past so distant it seems to belong to another life. That part of you has been dead for a long time, and you don't understand why. In this video, I will not offer you the emotional placebos you find elsewhere. I will not give you false hopes, catchphrases, or self-help cliches. My purpose is to give you the steel key to your own sanity. I will guide you through the fog of your confusion and show you, with brutal clarity, the 4 silent assassins that cause the psychological death of desire in a woman's mind, and how, without realizing it, in the purest innocence or ignorance, you may have opened the door and invited them in. Let's start with the first tool, the first and most crucial ray of light in this darkness. It is a radical shift in perspective, a new lens you need to use to see the truth. It is called the lens of reality versus fantasy, and it will illuminate the face of the first assassin. Chapter 1. The first assassin. The disappointment with the fantasy. Prepare yourself, because the fundamental truth is often the one that hurts the most. In the overwhelming majority of cases, she did not fall in love with you. Not with the real man, of flesh and blood, with your qualities, flaws, fears, and dreams. She fell in love with the projection her mind created of you. She fell in love with the fantasy she wove, with the threads of her own hopes and social narratives about who you were, who you would become, and what an idyllic life with you would be like. When you met, she wasn't seeing you. She was seeing raw potential, a blank canvas on which she could paint the masterpiece of her ideal man. She saw a character that fit perfectly into the script she, consciously or unconsciously, had already written for her own life. Her libido, that primal force, her sexual energy, her overwhelming desire, all of it was directed not at you, but at this fantasized version, this heroic avatar that inhabited her imagination. And to be fair, perhaps in the beginning you seemed to live up to this ideal. The passion phase is a mutual performance. The novelty, the adrenaline of the chase, the conscious effort to show only your best side. All of it conspired to feed the illusion. You were the perfect actor for the role she had in mind. But reality is a relentless force. Day after day, month after month, year after year, reality erodes the foundations of any fantasy. The real you inevitably emerged, a normal man, an ordinary human being, with good days and bad, with admirable virtues and irritating flaws, with strengths and with limits. You didn't accumulate the fortune she secretly imagined. You didn't achieve the social status she projected. You didn't transform into the Prince Charming from the stories she consumed since childhood. You remained you. And here is the psychological mechanism she will never admit, perhaps not even to herself. She feels deeply deceived. The source of the disappointment is not you. It is her own imagination that has betrayed her. But the human ego is a master of self-protection. To take responsibility for one's own disillusionment is too painful. It is much easier, psychologically safer, to project the blame. And the target of this projection is you. In her mind, the narrative is inverted. You deceived her. You pretended to be someone you were not. You lured her into a life that does not correspond to the one she had dreamed of. Now put yourself in her shoes for a moment. How can she desire with surrender and passion someone who has become the living symbol of the death of her dreams? Every glance at you is a reminder of the chasm between the life she imagined and the life she has. The first tool, the practical and immediate application you need to make, is this brutally honest self-assessment. Stop torturing yourself with the question, "What did I do wrong?" That question places you at the center of the blame. Instead, use the new lens and ask yourself, what were the fantasies she projected onto me at the beginning of our journey? What were the unspoken but implicit expectations that hung in the air? At what specific points did my reality, my authentic self, inevitably shatter that projection? This understanding is your first and most significant relief. It does not erase the pain, but it relocates it. It moves your agony from the toxic field of, "I am a failure, I am not good enough," to the clearer, more objective field of, "I did not live up to an impossible fantasy, a script I never read." And that, my friend, is the beginning of your liberation. And know that this tool of clarity is not a modern invention. It has its roots in a wisdom of more than 2,000 years forged in the fire and pressure of the Roman Empire. Stoicism. The great Stoic philosophers like Epictetus and Marcus Aurelius taught us the most powerful and liberating principle for peace of mind, the dichotomy of control. The idea is simple, but its application is revolutionary. Some things in the universe are under our control, and others, the vast majority, are not. Our happiness, our tranquility, our inner strength depend entirely on our ability to discern between the two. The fantasies in your wife's mind, the expectations she nurtured, the idealized projections she made about you, all of this has always been and always will be radically outside of your control. It is her private universe. Trying to live to match someone else's fantasy is not just a recipe for frustration. It is a form of self-annihilation, of soul suicide. It is a race you can never win. Your power, your dignity, your only chance at peace lie in focusing solely and exclusively on what you can control. Your character, your actions, your reactions, your integrity, your word, your purpose. Your mission as a man in this world is not, and never was, to be the character in her fantasy. It is to be the best, most virtuous and strongest version of the real man you can be. Lasting peace will not come from a desperate attempt to win back her desire. It will come from anchoring your sense of worth in something that no one, not even she, can take from you: your own virtue and your purpose. With this rock-solid Stoic foundation, let us now use our lantern of truth to expose the other three assassins hiding in the shadows of your relationship. Chapter 2. The second assassin, the erosion of emotional trust. For feminine desire to flourish, it needs an ecosystem of safety. I am not talking about physical or financial security, although they are important. I am talking about something much more subtle and fragile: emotional safety. The absolute trust that she can be vulnerable, open up, show her strangest, silliest, or most frightened parts without being judged, ridiculed, or dismissed. And this vital trust does not die from a single axe blow, like a great betrayal. It dies poisoned, slowly, by 1,000 daily paper cuts. Search your memory. Remember that time she came to you, her eyes shining, to tell you about a new hobby, maybe a pottery class, or the desire to write a book, and you, with your eyes glued to the television or the computer screen, responded with a monosyllabic "nice one" without looking away. In that instant, you communicated that her world was a triviality. Remember that time she shared a deep fear, an insecurity from work, and you, instead of offering a hug and listening, jumped straight into problem-solver mode, offering a 5-step action plan. You treated her emotion as a defect to be fixed, not as a part of her to be embraced. Remember that time she introduced you to her friends, and you made a subtle joke about them. Later, or made it clear that you considered them intellectually inferior. You invalidated her judgment and her connections. Each of these seemingly insignificant moments was a brick in the wall that she, silently, built between you. She showed you her soul, naked and vulnerable, and you, perhaps with the best of intentions but with the worst of executions, rejected it. Every time this happened, she learned to hide a little more of herself, to wear a slightly thicker mask in your presence. My tool here is the validation audit. The exercise is not to drown in guilt, but to seek understanding. Mentally review, as a neutral observer, your interactions from the last few years. Where did you respond with cold logic when she cried out for empathy? Where did you offer pragmatic solutions when all she needed was silent understanding? Where did you use sarcasm as a weapon to feel superior? The deep wisdom behind this is the Stoic concept of sympatheia, the idea that everything in the cosmos is interconnected, that we are part of a single organism. In a relationship, this interconnection is even more intense. By invalidating a part of her, no matter how small, you are not just hurting that part. You are poisoning the entire emotional ecosystem. A woman cannot surrender herself sexually, in the most vulnerable state that exists, to a man with whom she cannot open up psychologically, in her most authentic state. The body does not surrender, where the soul does not trust. Chapter 3. The Third Assassin, the Museum of Resentment. Prepare yourself for another inconvenient truth. Women, in general, are expert collectors of resentment. They keep past grievances and hurts like a museum curator keeps precious artifacts. Each piece is catalogued, polished daily with the cloth of memory, and displayed in a private gallery in her mind. Some of these pieces are real and legitimate hurts, mistakes you have made. Others are imagined offenses, negative interpretations of neutral actions. But in her mind, in her gallery of resentment, they are all real and valuable. That time 5 years ago when you forgot your anniversary. The careless comment you made about her mother at a family party. The day you decided to go play soccer with friends instead of going with her to an event that was important to her. The look you gave another woman on the street, a look that lasted a second longer than was tolerable. She never confronted most of these things in a clear and resolute way. She just stored them. And now she doesn't just have one complaint. She has an entire museum of resentment. A lifelong, meticulously organized collection of reasons why you do not deserve her desire, her respect, her admiration. In the narrative she has built, reinforced by her friends, she is the martyr, the saint, the victim who heroically puts up with you despite all your flaws. And victims, my friend, do not desire their oppressors. They tolerate them, they endure them, but they never desire them. The tool here is counterintuitive. It is not to try to visit this museum with her, to discuss each piece, to apologize for events you barely remember. To do so is a fatal mistake. It only validates her collection, gives more power to her victim narrative. The tool is the antidote of present behavior. You make her museum obsolete. You stop providing new pieces for the collection. You demonstrate, through consistent and unwavering actions today, a strength of character and the integrity, and a leadership so present and powerful that they make the petty grievances of the past seem like what they really are, trivialities of a mind focused on the past. You become a man so centered on your mission, on your purpose, that her museum of resentments begins to look like a childish and meaningless hobby. The Stoic wisdom that anchors this attitude is the powerful principle of amor fati, the love of fate. This is not passive resignation. It is an active and courageous embrace of reality, including your past with all its flaws. You accept what was, without drowning in guilt or remorse. You see your mistakes not as stains on your character, but as brutal lessons that forged the stronger man you are becoming today. Your total focus is on the present, on acting with virtue now. Chapter 4. The Fourth Assassin. The Sexual Deception That Became Death. This is the most tragic assassin, the most intimate, and often the final blow to desire. When you started having relations, in most cases you were both performing. She, wanting to appear as the perfect sexual partner, the liberal and insatiable goddess, gave you positive feedback for things she actually hated or was indifferent to. She moaned louder when in fact, she wanted you to stop or change course. She faked orgasms to protect your ego or to speed up the end of the act. And you, a logical man who operates on data, collected this false feedback and treated it as truth, thinking you had found the golden key to her pleasure. You doubled down. You became a master, an expert, at doing exactly the things that secretly repelled her. You were meticulously trained by her to be the wrong lover. Imagine the tragedy of this. Year after year, each sexual encounter became a silent ordeal for her, an increasingly exhausting performance. She created a sexual script that disgusted her, and you, diligently, followed it to the letter, thinking you were pleasing her. And now, the mere thought of intimacy with you fills her with a conditioned dread. Her body, in an act of self-defense, has begun to reject what her mouth never had the courage or the ability to communicate. The sudden headaches, the overwhelming fatigue that appears the minute you touch her, the mysterious illnesses that conveniently appear at night. It is her body screaming no in a language you cannot ignore. The tool here is the hardest, the most difficult to swallow, the reset of brutal honesty. You must accept a devastating truth. The sexual dynamic you had was most likely a lie. There is no small adjustment to be made. There is nothing to fix. The entire structure was built on false foundations. The only way out is a complete reset, which begins with the acceptance of this truth. It means understanding that the compatibility you thought existed perhaps never existed at all. The Stoic wisdom behind this is the maxim that echoes through the centuries. The truth will set you free. Living a lie, especially such an intimate one, is the worst kind of prison for both of you. Only the acceptance of the truth, naked, raw, and painful, can give you the freedom to, at the very least, understand the situation as it really is, and stop fighting a ghost. So, here we are. The four assassins, exposed to the light, the disappointment with the fantasy, the erosion of emotional trust, the museum of resentment, and the sexual deception that became death. Do you see the pattern? The great transformation you are desperately seeking is not about learning a seduction trick to win her back. That would be treating the symptom, not the disease. The real journey is about you recovering yourself through the most powerful weapon that exists, understanding. You cease to be a confused victim, adrift in a sea of pain, and become a man who understands the complex and subterranean dynamics at play. The pain you feel is real and valid, but the solution, your peace, is not in changing her. She is a universe outside of your control. The solution is in using this painful wisdom to forge yourself into a stronger, more conscious, more unwavering man. A man whose center of gravity is not in a woman's approval or desire, but in his own purpose, his own code of honor, his own character. This is the Stoic path. This is the path to a truly armored mind. She may never desire you again. And your final goal, your great victory, is to reach the point where this reality, though sad, no longer has the power to destroy your inner peace. If this brutally honest analysis has brought you a moment of clarity, if it has given you a steel tool to start rebuilding the walls of your mind, then join our legion. Subscribe to the Mente Blindata channel for more practical wisdom that transforms the chaos of modern life into inner strength. Leave your comment below. Which of the 4 assassins resonated most with your reality? Your story on the battlefield is not a sign of weakness, but a testimony that helps other men understand they are not alone in this fight. And finally, like this video. Your like is the signal the algorithm needs to bring this message to more men who are suffering in silence, trapped in the darkness of confusion, and who need this truth to begin to set themselves free. Remember, the most important fortress, the only one you have a duty to defend to the end, is your own mind.